So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm Jarad.
I'm Brandon.
And everybody in the whole world is happy. Stone Cold Steve Austin's coming back to the world of WWE, except for one person I know particular. That's me. We'll talk that and so much more as another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast starts right now.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad Election would be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddy from Syracuse.
So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast, joined as always with Brandon. I am Jarad. Another busy week in the world of professional wrestling. Make sure you follow us at Heel to the Face on Twitter. That's where we upload all our episodes. That's where we upload additional YouTube videos that are not in our necessary podcast formats. That's where we started to kind of get a little more active in general on social media. So hit up our social media, at Heel to the Face on Twitter. For anything you want to know about the podcast when it comes to links or just following along in the world of wrestling. Obviously, you're going to have a mix of both come WrestleMania weekend because I'll be tweeting out what's happening at WrestleMania while being at WrestleMania and all the other festivities.
I'll be doing it from the fan on the couch perspective.
He'll be doing it from what we were all doing about 2 years ago at this time. Remember, we were 2 years ago, I think, this exact week, we were doing a podcast, and I couldn't have been any more pumped to go to Tampa, and it was literally less than a week later. And then everything changed.
Hey, I will say this. I think it's not a bad thing that we'll have boots on the ground where you'll be at the venue, and I'll be watching it from home so I can give the folks their perspective from watching it on Peacock, and you can get the perspective from being there.
And it makes no sense to me that this is the second WrestleMania at AT&T Stadium that me, as a avid non-Dallas Cowboy fan, have been to, and then the Dallas Cowboy fan here has not been there. But a busy week nonetheless in the world of professional wrestling. And what we alluded to the start of the show, Stone Cold Steve Austin, as many have been talking about, will be at WrestleMania. It will not, as of right now, be an official match. It will be as a guest of the KO show, as we knew this was happening when KO ended Monday Night Raw. So he starts Monday Night Raw losing the tag team championships. He ends Monday Night Raw. You knew, obviously, if you're ending it with a talking segment with Kevin Owens, it's got to be something big. It's got to be this. And it was. And the next day, Stone Cold, he accepted the challenge the next day. And I have to say, this is not something that I am a fan of. I kind of spoke prior to this why I'm not a fan of this. And I don't understand exactly why so many people are a fan of this, because there was so many people who said in Saudi Arabia a few years ago, Goldberg, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, The Undertaker, why are they going out there? They can't do it anymore. And I will say, from the perspective of, that was a fan's perspective. Their perspective was that they could do it. This is, we as fans say Stone Cold can't go anymore. Stone Cold says he can't go anymore. Vince McMahon says he can't go anymore. So what are we doing here?
But he has been. He's still in great shape. He has been working, and I talked about this on previous episodes. He has been seen working in the ring with a guy like Lance Archer, which last time I checked is kind of a big dude in AEW. So
he's a big dude in general. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, and not only that, and imagine the thing. Archer played quarterback. Mm-hmm. Imagine 6'8", big guy like that playing quarterback. Nonetheless, that's pretty crazy. But Stone Cold and Lance Archer were working together. That tells me, that Stone Cold is going to do some more. I don't think it's just a segment. I think, as you alluded to on Twitter this past, I think it was this week, you said that what are they going to do? KO show night 1, Stone Cold and KO match night 2. I don't see that being out of the question. I think that can happen. And here's the thing. I like it. I am a Stone Cold fan. That's the other part of it. I love Stone Cold. If Stone Cold can do anything at any show, I'm happy with it. I don't even care. He comes out, gives a couple stunners, drinks a couple beers, walks out. I am a happy fan.
I guess my thing is, and this is going to sound crazy as somebody who just said he doesn't want to see Stone Cold wrestle, I would have been a little happier as if they just announced that Stone Cold was indeed having a match, because this alludes to just a formality of, okay, so we're going to get a match between the two or some sort of physicality. I don't like this iffiness. Now, it reminds me a little of The Undertaker and John Cena from about 3 years ago or 4 years ago now. The Undertaker, will he answer John Cena's challenge at WrestleMania? He did. They had the match. The Undertaker beat John Cena in New Orleans. But this is kind of like, just get to the physicality, get to the match. Why are we having him as a special guest when he already said verbally that he's coming not, with his niceties, he's coming to kick some ass. So if he's coming to kick some ass, how long is this talking segment going to last before hands are thrown?
I think it's going to be one of those deals like you alluded to. Again, I'll say it. night one, they'll have a talking segment. He stuns KO or KO stuns him. I would say Stone Cold is probably going to stun him on night one. And then KO gets mad and says, I want a match. They have a match on night two. I'm not saying it's happening, but that's kind of where it goes at this point. And I don't mind the mystery behind it. That part doesn't bother me. I mean, for Pete's sake, we've had folks like Snooki on a broadcast. Come on.
I am not against Stone Cold. I guess my thing is a lot of people, and this is kind of funny, a lot of people did not like WrestleMania 32 the last time they were at AT&T Stadium. They didn't care for WrestleMania 32, thought it was a pretty lackluster event overall. And what did we see at one time? We saw Stone Cold, we saw Mick Foley, and we saw Shawn Michaels come out, have a segment with the League of Nations at the time, all do their finishers on the League of Nations. And yet, I have to say, that was probably better than what we're going to get here because we got to see all three of them. Stone Cold has already done a stunner at AT&T Stadium before. This will not be new. He did it in a fine capacity. So why did everyone hate that The Rock showed up and didn't really do anything and hate that there was all those legends? And here they are hoping to see Stone Cold and hoping to see The Rock at this WrestleMania and super excited about it. When at WrestleMania 32, they were like, eh.
Here I'm gonna read you a quote that I got here. It's actually from JR's podcast. Good old JR, who's obviously a very close friend of Stone Cold Steve Austin. So this is what he said. It's a little bit of a paragraph, so bear with me here, folks. It says, quote, "It looks like Austin is not going to do anything at WrestleMania as far as wrestling in the ring. He and I have talked, but at the time we talked, he didn't know what he was going to do, and he didn't sound overwhelmingly enthusiastic about it. People have to understand that Steve is a perfectionist. Even though he stays in great shape and he looks wonderful, especially for a guy his age, he looks great. He can do a photo shoot, and it looks like that can be Steve from any era. But that's not the athlete in him. He likes to train, eat right, and do all those kind of things." Quote, end quote. So here, I'm going to add a little context to that. So if that's the Stone Cold that we're getting, that's not the Stone Cold I want to see then. So if it's not, and of course JR is going to do what he's got to do. He's on AEW. We can take that with a grain of salt, of course. But you also have to look at the fact that JR and Stone Cold have been friends for decades. They're close friends. We know this. So if it's a non-enthusiastic Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania, I don't want him there because that means he's not gonna. Maybe it's not going to be the best Stone Cold Steve Austin that we can have. So that I just want to add that to context. If that's true, I'm not a fan of it. But if Stone Cold is who he is, and that segment that he did, that little he was driving his what is it, like a dune buggy. If he's really coming to kick some ass, that's the Stone Cold I want to see. So you kind of have to see it from both sides of the plate, so to speak. So I think Stone Cold's going to come in and be the perfectionist and kick ass like he normally does. So I'm excited. I know you're not, like you said, but I think it's anytime Stone Cold comes in, I don't care. The same thing with The Rock. The Rock, he can come in, do a rock bottom, a people's elbow, and walk out. I'm happy.
I would be fine, I guess, if it was a little more of a surprise element. Now, I understand why it's not. They want to sell tickets. It's 2 nights, AT&T Stadium. There's no surprise there. But I guess in the sense of he's coming out and you're like, well, he's going to come out for a segment that's, this just seems very much like we already know the entire script to this. Like, there's not going to be any element of surprise, I guess, in this regard. At least I would have been surprised when his music hit and he would have come out and done some stunners. That would have been cool. But at least now we know he's going to do that. Like, the whole thing at WrestleMania 32, that was kind of a surprise when his music hit with the League of Nations. We weren't expecting them to come out. We weren't expecting Mick Foley. We weren't expecting Shawn Michaels there. But that was like a surprise. And then they did, like they said, they just did the finishers. And that was a cool segment. But I guess knowing, already so pre-planning this segment, if you will, kind of takes away from it. I'll ask you just a simple question, and I know your answer, and that's how I feel about this segment is, if you had a chance to have this or Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, what are you picking?
Stone Cold and KO.
You are picking? Okay, I guess I thought you were going to pick what I was going to pick.
Because that leads to another talking point that we have to talk about right now, and there's a reason why I say that, because there are reports. I kind of was alluding to it. This has been, talking points for, since the Cody Rhodes stuff came out, that he's been in talks with WWE. And who did I say as an opponent? I've been saying Seth Rollins since day one. So here's the thing. Here's rumors.
You said teaming up with The Miz at one time, though.
I'm saying if they were going to do anything except Logan Paul and then bring him in. But realistically, I wanted him to be in a match and, a little storyline with Seth Rollins. And here's some news that has been on the rumor mill out there, of course, which, again, you can take with a grain of salt. But where is WWE this coming week?
Yes, they're in Jacksonville, Florida.
And wait, can you fill in the folks that may not know, what is Jacksonville to the wrestling world?
Well, it is the home of AEW. It is essentially their Stamford, Connecticut. It is more than their Madison Square Garden because literally they own the Tony Khan and his family own the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they part own, I think, Daly's Place.
I think they do.
So if they don't just outright own Daly's Place, so
they
it's
probably
more.
do.
It's not even like their Madison Square Garden. It's their Stamford, Connecticut.
Yeah.
It is their actual headquarters. But again, if Cody Rhodes has nothing to do, and I get it that you want to, you the idea of you want to wait till there. But I mean, if he has nothing to do with AEW, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's like living there or any of that thing. You think they want to do that as a in the face of AEW?
I mean, why not? I mean, they could say, hey, it's great. He was just performing in another company not too long ago.
But that means WWE has to clearly acknowledge AEW, which is something they do not like to do.
They don't have to clearly acknowledge it. They can just put Cody Rhodes out there, and that's kind of their way.
They can acknowledge. They acknowledge that they hear and see AEW. They're not going to say it on the air, but they're acknowledging that they see them as competition. Whether they say it or not.
I just think it's
going to be acknowledged that they know that that's their home.
I think it's a subtle shot at AEW. If they do it. I'm not saying. And here's the other thing, too. If he's not there on Monday, he's not signed under contract. Because I think if he's under contract, he is at WWE in Jacksonville Monday Night Raw this coming week. Because you have to build a little something for if you're going to have this proposed Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins thing.
I mean, I personally feel that if he's coming out, it's going to be, and same with Bayley and some other returns, it's the night after WrestleMania. I feel like with WrestleMania...
Why not throw a curveball? Because that's predictable. Because WWE is predictable.
Do that. Yes.
It's predictable. Maybe WWE is seeing what AEW is doing, which obviously they do. The whole roar's been talking, especially, we'll get to that in a little bit, but there's been a lot of great surprises in AEW in the last few years. So why doesn't WWE, everybody expects the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. All right, we're going to get Bayley. We're going to get this person, person.
Remember Charlotte Flair last year? She was healthy, I think, with like 3 weeks to go before WrestleMania, and they held her on the shelf to bring her back after WrestleMania because they kind of are in the middle of building up stuff, and they kind of already have it kind of set.
How great would that be if Cody Rhodes' music hits on Monday Night Raw this coming week? That would be cool.
I mean, that would be really cool, and I'd like to see him because, I want to see him the night after WrestleMania, and if we see him at WrestleMania, it means we'll see him in both spots.
And I got to circle back. Real quick, not to cut you off. I got to circle back just for a second, just to touch on the whole KO and Seth Rollins situation. Obviously, RK Bro won the tag match, and actually in a great fashion.
And won the tag belt, which I was surprised that we had new champions.
But here's the thing. Who's out of the picture? KO, Seth Rollins. Who should be on WrestleMania? KO, Seth Rollins. You got Stone Cold and KO, so that takes one part of the equation. You got Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. You're still getting everybody on the show. That's fine with me. And by the way, I loved how that match finished. I'm just saying, with RK Bro or Matt Riddle in particular sneaking in at the end of the match or at the end to get the 1-2-3 after Seth and KO did all the work.
So we move on to some other new champions or a new champion, and one that many did not see coming, and I thought that we'd see him as a part of TakeOver, but not coming in as the champion, and I'm talking about Dolph Ziggler is the new NXT champion. And, somebody made a joke, I think, on Twitter about, this NXT 2.0 is all about the new stars, how they cut the fat, they got rid of the Adam Coles, the Johnny Garganos, they got rid of the whole, veteran guys, and who are your champions right now? Mandy Rose and Dolph Ziggler. So, 40-year-old Dolph Ziggler. So
I don't mind it.
It's kind of funny. In that aspect.
It's fun. I guess it's funny. It's funny in that aspect. But here's the thing: Mandy Rose is doing some of her best work. We can. There's no. I
don't mind it because I don't like NXT 2.0 and what they're doing. So it's not like I'm actually.
So you haven't liked any of the product right now.
I'm not saying I don't like any of the product, but like I'm fine with Dolph Ziggler being champion because that whole philosophy of them pushing the young stars, that's their philosophy. That's not my philosophy. My philosophy is bring back Adam Cole, bring back Johnny Gargano, make them champions again. That's my philosophy. That's their philosophy to make it young stars that they're going against.
I love Ziggler winning that championship, and I love the way they did it because they're not ruining Braun Breaker by having him lose the match. That's why you had the triple threat. That was obvious from the beginning. If Ziggler was going to win the match, Ciampa was taking the fall. That's just how it goes. But Ziggler brings more eyeballs and more attention to NXT because what's going to happen on Monday Night Raw this coming week or on SmackDown? He could do anything he wants at this point. He could just roll in, and guess what? He's got the NXT belt. And what better way to get maybe some more eyeballs on the NXT product than to have him on other WWE programming?
Yeah, and
acknowledging that he's the NXT champion.
They definitely need some help when it comes to NXT Stand and Deliver tickets. Pre-sale tickets are on sale. I think they fully go on sale this Friday. But they do not intend on selling the amount of tickets as they've had for previous. And it's kind of crazy to think, but the last time NXT was in front of a crowd that wasn't at the Performance Center, on the road, let's say, in front of a traditional regular-sized arena, was at NXT TakeOver Portland 2020, and that had to be one of the hottest, if not the best, WWE product of 2020. It was a few weeks, it was about a month before WrestleMania. It
was a good show.
It was their first standalone takeover that didn't come as, a part of another WWE weekend.
It was a hell of a show, too.
And it's crazy to see how the product has changed since. How the product, I think Matt Riddle was a part of that takeover. So
I think he was.
It's crazy to see how they went from literally a ticket that is the hottest ticket in pro wrestling to we're going to sell just the lower level of American Airlines Center and just the TV side, essentially, like you see for like these low-level SmackDowns that are having hard times drawing. Like this used to be the ticket to have, and now it is literally like the American Airlines Center is like, these sections are not even going to be sold.
And here's the thing. I know we're not that far into NXT 2.0. I don't say it's a failed project. I just think it's a project that right now it's treading water. I guess you can say you're putting water in the bucket. You're trying to scoop that bucket and throw the water back out. You're trying to keep that ship from sinking, so to speak. I don't think it's going to be a failure. It's taking a little bit longer than I would like, but there's some talent there. I do think getting on the road in general is probably a bigger deal. I mean, Braun Breaker. How great has he been?
Now, do you believe in a lot of what people are saying that his days in NXT are actually done and that he's going up to the main roster?
I hope not, because that's a mistake. That's a mistake because Braun Breaker is the face of NXT right now. Regardless of Dolph Ziggler being the champion, Ciampa's been the mainstay. He's the face of NXT. Why would you bring him? Why would you promote him so fast? I get it.
He's got to be a part of this Stand and Deliver too. I mean, this is a full takeover pay-per-view event or NXT event. You need all hands on deck for this NXT event. This is not one of those ones in years past. Think about it. WrestleMania in 2020, right before the pandemic, they planned on having a takeover the night before WrestleMania and still have Rhea Ripley as the NXT champion as a part of WrestleMania, not a part of TakeOver, and other NXT stars as a part of WrestleMania. That's how, I guess, flourished this NXT roster was, where they could have a pay-per-view WrestleMania weekend, and you're like, oh, Rhea Ripley, she must be defending the belt. Like, no, she'll actually be at Mania. Adam Cole, I think, will be at Mania. Things like that.
I'll say this. NXT 2.0 is not as bad as the internet wrestling community is putting it out to be. There's still talent there. I mean, you still have a Raquel Gonzalez taking care of business in the women's division. You got some other new tag team that I really like is the Creed brothers. I think they're doing a hell of a job. There's talent there. It's just there's got to be some oomph behind it, and I'm hoping this Dolph Ziggler NXT title reign where he can bring the belt to other WWE shows, and it's being acknowledged that he's the NXT champion, can bring a little oomph to the NXT the brand itself. I don't think it's as bad as people think it is.
No, I think people don't like it because they liked what they had and then WWE changed it and took it away from them. It's not like they're looking at it with new eyes. They're looking at it with eyes of we had 2020. This, you took it away from us. If you bought me a 2021 brand new Toyota, SUV, I would love it if you gave me a Lamborghini and let me drive that for a couple of years and then traded it in behind my knowledge and then gave me this SUV. I would hate it in comparison. So they're not looking at it like this is a brand new product. They're looking at it like, hey, we had this thing we really liked and then you took it away and changed it on us for no reason at all because it was flourishing. It was doing essentially what they wanted to do. It got better ratings than it currently does. Obviously, when it comes to attendance, we'll see how the attendance goes in the future, but attendance was no issue when it comes to these events. So that is the reason why people don't like it. They don't like it in comparison
to what they used to have.
When they watch it, they just think we had something great. It's like this with like sports names. A lot of people are talking about like the Cleveland Guardians in baseball. I don't like that name. And it's like, would you have not liked that name if it came without, the fact that they had to take away your previous name, Cleveland Indians, and change your history.
Well, that
and do
or
that
like
stuff.
or Washington football team. It was the Washington Redskins for a long time, and now they're the Commanders. Now, I will say this. I think it's NXT. The reason like fans are the way they are about the from NXT Black and Gold to this new revamped, I guess you want to call it, edition 2.0. I think it's like fans of a sports team, just any sports team, doesn't matter what sport. And they feel like the team is doing really well, and then ownership says, "Well, we gotta retool. We gotta cut this guy. It's kind of like the equivalent of right now. A lot of fans of like the Seattle Seahawks. They're getting rid of they got rid of their cornerstone Russell Wilson this week. They're getting rid of their star linebacker. So it's like fans are not happy about it. So it's just across the board. Fans not liking where they were to what they're doing now, and maybe not seeing the full bigger picture that maybe Vince and his team have.
It's funny that you say that exact thing and you relate it to football, because I can specifically remember, I think this is now 2004, as a fan of the New York Football Giants. They were 6-2, I believe, on the season, and I think they lost 2 in a row, and they were 6-4, which is still a great record, still has a lot of chance to make the playoffs. And they were led by Kurt Warner as their quarterback. And I think at 6-4, they decided, no, Kurt Warner, your days with the New York Giants as starting quarterback are done. We're bringing in this rookie with no games behind him, Eli Manning. Eli Manning came in there and then lost every single game for the rest of the year. And yeah, I was not a fan. I said, what are you doing? We were 6-4. We're a game out of the first place in this division. When you make the playoffs, all bets are off. We could win the Super Bowl, because we've done it before at 9-7 and 10-6 with teams that didn't belong there before.
And clearly Kurt Warner had a little bit of left in him too, left in that tank.
And when they did that, I was saying, what are you doing? And yes, the long-term vision, the following couple of years, the New York Giants did end up winning the Super Bowl, and Eli Manning becomes one of the best quarterbacks in New York Giants history. But at that time,
I'm not commenting on that part of it. I'll leave that one alone.
Well,
we'd be in a whole different monologue on that.
But you can't really deny that. I'm not saying in football history. We're talking about
speaking of
Giants.
Champions. We got to move to another champion, a new crowning of a champion just last night on Dynamite.
Scorpio
Sky. I got to get your thoughts on that, because I loved it.
Yeah, no, I didn't see that coming, and I know he has the streak, and I know, it's nowhere near Jade Cargill's, and it's nowhere near, well, I guess it is near Jade Cargill, but it's nowhere near, like the Undertaker streak or anything like that, as they were billing it title versus streak. But yeah, I was kind of surprised, because I feel like with Sammy Guevara, especially too because he lost the belt and then he came back and won the interim belt, the whole 9 yards. I thought they were going to keep it on him for a little bit, especially coming off the pay-per-view where everybody retained their belts at Revolution. So yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise that they crowned a new champion. Not so much in Scorpio Sky, but in general.
Good segment. I thought it was the whole match segment. Everything was good. And Paige Van Zant's now all she's members. Now she's all elite. So it's the whole deal was interesting. It was cool that Sammy, as JR likes to always say on the broadcast, that he had his real life girlfriend Ty Conti involved in this storyline too. So I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen there with Ty and Paige Van Zandt. That's going to be that'll be fun, because both of them have a mixed martial arts background.
Now there's that traditional thing that you see either on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter where it says somebody's all elite. Now with Paige Van Zandt, I don't necessarily think that goes into that category, because we've seen her on television and we kind of knew, she hadn't quote unquote signed the contract, but she was
was there, yeah.
She wasn't like the other person that made their essential debut at AEW Dynamite this past Wednesday.
Wait, who made the big debut this week?
Well, I saw on Twitter at about 8 o'clock, and I found this kind of funny, that somebody said, officially, Jeff Hardy is now a free agent, and somebody responded, no, he isn't. And it was about an hour later that he came out, WWE music and all. Again, very surprising.
How about that?
Yeah.
So not only Jeff Hardy, his contract expired, his whole situation with WWE expired yesterday. So as of 12:01 Wednesday in the morning, he was a free agent. I couldn't believe let me rephrase that. I couldn't believe that the old music when that music hit, I'm like, no freaking way. How the hell did they get that music from the WWE archives, so to speak, to AEW? I'm looking forward to that. I thought the whole segment was great. I don't know if you saw, but I think there was a part where Jeff Hardy got in the ring and there's a shot of Darby Allin just like in awe of having the Hardy Boys, like people that he looked up to.
Darby Allin looks like somebody who very much taked after the Hardy Boys.
Well, and then at the end of that segment there, you had you had the Hardy Boys, and you had Darby Allin and Sting. Who in their mind would have thought 2022, Jeff Hardy, Matt Hardy, the Hardy Boys are in AEW, and they're in the same ring as Sting and Darby Allin? Like, that's crazy.
I guess the Hardy Boys being in the same ring as Sting, because we kind of saw that a little in WWE. Not in the same ring, but they were under the same company banner for a little bit.
Sure.
No, yeah, with Jeff Hardy, he's not somebody. He reminds me of like Kurt Angle when WWE let him go because he had problems, and they're like, we don't want you to compete because you need to go fix your problems. And Kurt Angle, I feel like, didn't want to man up to it and didn't want to admit that he had problems. And he's like, no, I'm good. And he went right to Impact Wrestling immediately.
Well, the issue with that is, and
I feel like Jeff Hardy's the same way. Jeff Hardy didn't take what WWE told him.
Yeah, but he didn't. Here's the thing. I got to stop you there. I got to stop you on that. I'm going to start with the Kurt Angle part. Kurt Angle, I think, and of course, I'm not in Kurt Angle's head. I'm not in Kurt Angle's inner circle, so to speak. But just knowing how addicts work, they're going to deny it, even though we all know they have a problem. They're going to deny it. And the first sign of somebody getting back on track is admitting they have a problem and they fix it. So Kurt Angle, like you said, yes, WWE said, you have a problem. And Kurt's like, no, I don't. Everybody else in the world knows it, except for the person that needs to take care of it themselves. And he moves over and gets out of WWE, moves on with his wrestling career, and should have taken a break. Now, going back to Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy, he didn't fail a drug test. That's the difference. Jeff Hardy was clean. That drug test was clean. So to me, he got kind of railroaded because of the stigma that he carries with him, with his demons he's had over the years. So somebody said he was off that night, and they assumed, oh, he's this is going back to where he can't, he's dangerous in the ring, he's on something, which totally was proven not to be correct. So I have to stop you there. Jeff Hardy seems to be in the best mindset. He looks happy, he looks healthy, he looks great. So I had to stop you there real quick because Jeff Hardy, I think, he got kind of railroaded in the WWE in this last run because everybody just assumed, oh, he's coming to the ring all cocked and loaded, so to speak.
I want to end this week's show on what you think about the debut of a brand new tag team we saw at AEW. Obviously, we saw it forming at AEW Revolution, and I'm a big fan. And it's crazy to think that we had this dream match at AEW Revolution, and before the show, I didn't even think twice that, within a few days, all of a sudden that these guys would be a tag team. And it's like how you can just change AEW, how wrestling can just change, how you can have these storylines and have everything going one direction. And then next thing you know, you have what we have. And that is, Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson as a tag team with William Regal by their side.
Yeah, with Regal essentially like their manager.
It's like literally like overnight, like we saw the death of some stables or, the restructuring of some stables at Dynamite this past week. And then like the creation of a brand new one, which could be, or at least a tag team, that's like huge out of nowhere. It's literally like Triple H going against Randy Orton on a pay-per-view, and then on Monday Night Raw, all of a sudden Evolution exists.
I'll jump in real quick on that one. You mentioned the word stable. I think for now it's going to be a tag team, and I think once they get really established as a tag team, don't be surprised if it turns into a stable. Now I gotta get your thoughts on this then. So obviously Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, two of the best singles competitors, not only in AEW but in the world of wrestling. Do you think I think it's great that you're putting these two guys together, and instead of having them keep cycling through the singles opponents, now you're going to have a chance to have them wrestle, folks like the Young Bucks. Like, you're going to have all these new possibilities of tag team matches.
Because we've seen them as singles competitors essentially in WWE as well. So we've seen Daniel Bryan go up the ranks, become world champion, do that whole 9 yards. We've seen him be face, we've seen him be heel, but we've never seen him be, a real tag. And I like that they're not going against, the big times. I like that they're kind of doing the whole squash match.
They're working their way up.
Yeah, I like that they're not just going as a tag team against another big tag.
Yeah, it's not like they're going. It's not like they're going against
Sting and Darby Allin or something like that.
Yeah, it's not like they're going to be doing, matching up with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus.
Or even just like the fact that they're not going against other two singles competitors. It's not like, they're going up against like Hangman Adam Page and like a partner of his choosing. Yeah. And like what they have these, like these star-studded 6-man tags. They're going as a actual tag team. I mean, they're going out there like they're 3-minute warning.
Think of the possibilities. You're gonna have Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley. Eventually, we're gonna get to the Young Bucks. I know that's gonna happen. They're gonna build that up for a while. It's not gonna happen overnight. But the matches they can have with Jurassic Express, like I just mentioned, Red Dragon, I mean, the Acclaimed.
Not even just match. I just want to see them go and squash some people and kind of have that persona about them.
I just want to see good matches. I don't care about the squashing's fine, but you can't overdo the squashing.
I just think, I wouldn't mind seeing like a 3-minute warning like we used to see in WWE, or like one of these tag.
3-minute. I don't want to recycle that.
But like where they come out and they have like, because I think William Regal's an amazing manager, and they just come out and they're going to build up to the Young Bucks and the good tag teams. But it'd be cool at first if they kind of just create their presence as like this.
But you can't do it too long. You got to
like
play it
what
safe.
the Ascension essentially was quote unquote supposed to be. These others.
So what's your timeline? How many months? How many weeks are we squashing people for?
At least I would say at least a month.
Okay, that's okay. If it's a month, sure. I don't want it to be like 3-4 months of this. Like we can't do that.
I want them to build up their like cohesiveness.
I'd say
a
this.
team. I want them to build up like something we've never seen before in either of these guys.
Give me like 4 or 5 more squashes. Give me 4 or 5, and then let's start getting into the meat portion of the tag team position.
And that'll always be there. I think this is a cool character of both these guys that we've never seen before.
No,
and I want to see where they can take it.
It's smart. Who would have thought you'd get Regal, Mox, and Danielson all together? That's cool stuff.
So that's going to do it for another edition of this week's show. We are about 21 days to WrestleMania, so that'll mean we're about 2 weeks from WrestleMania come next week's show, and we'll probably have so much more to talk about in the world of WWE, and we'll see if this guy right here to my right is correct. Jacksonville, Florida, this upcoming week, Monday Night Raw. See if a Cody sighting. If not, we'll talk about it. If so, we'll talk about it. Either way, make sure to follow the program at Heel to the Face, and we'll talk to you next week.